All right, thanks, Gary. Let's call this special called meeting to order. Our order of business is to discuss the American Rescue Plan funding and our 2022 budget and construction in process, and a call for a public hearing for the budget and some communication from town staff. So with that, American Rescue Plan, where's Josh?
He had to step out and he wanted to get some more information about
The American Rescue Plan.
He'll be right back.
That's good. That was-
Just a
It
second.
was
Changing it.
timely. I'm glad he was
Changing it as we
thinking about it. While we're waiting, we discussed this before, our first wave of funding and the two projects that we have that are, we have to fund them. We have to do these projects regardless, but they both fit. And so I think that's one of the reasons we wanted this on the agenda, was just to revisit it, make sure we had it in the minutes of the public meeting. We discussed it briefly, but Josh, go right ahead.
So we're on the American Rescue Plan Act.
We're on A.
I'm gonna pass, let me pass this little, just take one and pass it down. So these are, what you're gonna be looking at really is, our total funding is just short of $2.4 million, so $2,390,000. Of course, that's coming in two equal payments, one this year and then one the following year. And what I have on here are just really some infrastructure projects that we've got currently on the books. The water line on 70, and this is when we put our new pump station in on Highway 70 where the old Public Works location is. There is a 10-inch line that runs into, if I'm not mistaken, a 6-inch line, and what this is to update that 6-inch line to a 10-inch line so it's not getting stifled. So that's a little bit of a concern right now with getting that done. And then I think the other, one of the more important projects would be our dam work, which is the Lake Tomahawk stormwater. And I know Councilmember King had mentioned some grants, which we are still trying to find some grants, so we'll continue to do that. I don't know how successful we will be, but we are continuing to research FEMA grants for that work. And then you can see a couple of the other ones, so water line on Montreat Road, which is relatively expensive, a water line on NC9, which is $750,000. And then we've got a sewer line that we've had on the books for a number of years, I think since the late 90s.
Probably late 80s.
Late 80s, maybe.
So I was looking at that with how to do this, but
Stop.
yeah, that's right. But I was looking at the map of the best we had that Josh had of where that sewer line is to be, and it's kind of hard. You might need to look at a map before to refresh your memory on it. Who it serves, what benefit it would be, because we're committed to doing it. It's just. It might be good to ascertain exactly what benefit it would be to get that in. It's been so long, it makes me wonder if that's not questionable or something.
I don't know that it's questionable, but the 30, 40 years of evolution and development since that probably would want to, I don't recall where it lies either. But I do remember it's way down the list because it was a requirement that we put an
Right.
outfall line in. But it served a community that didn't have a real need for it at the time.
Right.
So it's probably worth the challenge before you go forward, take a look at where it
Right.
was and see if needs arose in places we did not anticipate.
Well, that's what we thought in looking at it, the best you could tell. This is a pretty rough, little outline of where the sewer line would set. But it just, frankly, it appeared to me it was going through the veteran cemetery or something. It was an odd shape, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's out in that vicinity.
Yeah, I mean, you can't tell for sure by
Yeah, I'll
the
have to see if I can dig
Yeah.
up something 40 years ago.
But I think for the second wave of funding, if that's a commitment, it is a commitment.
Yeah.
And if it's going to serve some people that need to be served, I think it might be that kind of makes it rise to the top of the list. But if it's something altogether different and maybe it doesn't, it's just a whole different story than it was 40 years ago. It would be good to just understand it. And I guess, would we lean on MSD to help us where that Do you know where that sewer line would be?
Probably some, but I have had some discussions with them, and most of this is really gonna be on us to do of course, the engineering and all that, but we can talk to them and see if we can get a better idea of kind of the exact location of
Don't
that
they
line.
pay 30% or 20 or something?
They're paying 35.
35.
Yeah.
And so they've got it, you know,
They got some.
they've got some skin in the game, so to speak. So, but anyway, that, if we could, and that would, I think, help us with decisions in the future. But, you know, if indeed that it's gonna serve some people and it's a commitment, I think we need to think about that and maybe make it a priority. So, anything else, Josh?
I think that's it. That was the, these are really just, I think this money does, can fund some other things in town, but these are really the more
Right.
important infrastructure
Right.
projects that are
Right.
kind of on our books.
Right. In a budget presentation that I know Josh heard, it was at, Chairman Brownie Newman gave an overview of the county budget and reminded, and had a nice slide with the county's, policy and guidelines for using their funds. And it's really pretty well stated, don't you think, Josh? And that being that the county's, their commitment to spending their $50 million is on projects, and you'll have to help me, I can't remember the wording exactly, but it's where that money can be spent one time and there's not a future obligation to spend it. In other words, if you provided some funding for whatever, well, they're gonna need the funding next year. Not that it's not important, of course, lots of important causes. And then, and I think that's, I don't mind at all, even just, just utilizing that template, because I think that's pretty good thinking. The other thing is, and Josh, you may or may not be able to enlighten the council on this, but there's various requests that come up. We had one that I think all the council members saw. But some of the funds going to a not-for-profit, which there's, in my reading of the, I'm trying to think what they call it, but there's 10 or 15 pages that really encapsulate all the
Final rule.
yeah, the final rules or whatever. You can fund nonprofits, but it's not quite that simple. It's just to say you can fund them. There's lots of stipulations there, and so I think for members of the public who might be interested, and I think a lot are, how we might be deploying these funds. There is a challenge to funding the not-for-profits, even by the terms of the rules that the government put out for spending the money. But there's also a challenge just that we have so many not-for-profits that do good work, and then you get in the matter of selecting and which is doing better work than the other, and it's a challenge to deploy monies in that fashion. It just is. I mean, the county has ran into that for years. Some years ago they had the long list that they were funding out of the really general fund, and it's out of good intent, but that's a challenge when you move out in that direction of funding operating. Using government funds for operating purposes and so forth. So it's a challenge. Anybody?
So I've been trying so hard to understand the guidelines around the use of this money. It's really complicated. So I'm not going to claim I'm an expert, but I am trying. And I do understand that these projects are really important. All the infrastructure projects on this page. I would like to just put my 2 cents in that I'd like to, just a little bit of this money to be spent on something that's above the ground. And, not a huge amount. I get it that this stuff is important and expensive. In fact, I have a meeting with Josh tomorrow to run by a couple of ideas, but I'm just throwing that out there, that it's not just a given that all of this money is going to go for these projects. And I'm sure the public has some thoughts about it too, and I think it's real important that we hear those ideas as well. I'm sure the other council members have ideas about the money too, so it'll be a good conversation to have.
Could I ask council, with our first one-half funding that's coming in sometime soon. For a motion to address those two infrastructure projects, the water line on 70 and the stormwater project with the Lake Tomahawk Dam, for a motion to use those for the first one half of our spending. And if grant money comes in, we'll change our direction on that.
Would it be better to look at the money in a whole comprehensive fashion instead of just picking projects now, or?
Well, we've got this money will come in soon, and Josh can get and they're important projects like the dam is like,
Yeah,
it needs to happen.
I
And
get
so
it.
we get council behind it, and they need to be funded regardless. And so that'd be my request of council, and then you've got a whole year to work on the other one half.
So are you asking for a motion right now?
Yep.
Uh-huh.
I mean, the dam has to be done. I mean, that's a no-brainer, so,
And so does the water line.
yeah.
Choice there.
So I'd make a motion that we go ahead and do that now.
Yeah, so the motion would be to use the first one half of the ARP funding for the Highway 70 water line project and the Lake Tomahawk stormwater dam project. Great, thank you. So is that clear to everybody? Any discussion? Do we still have to do the roll call right now?
This is an open meeting, but I don't know how many people are counting on doing this virtually. Since you're in a hybrid, it probably wouldn't hurt to have the roll call.
Doesn't take that long, does it? Councilman Stone.
Ryan Stone, Ryan Stone, aye.
I'm sorry, I skipped one.
You skipped
I'm not used to
Ryan's
somebody,
always first.
I'm not used to somebody being on my far right.
Pam King, aye.
Tim Raines, aye.
Archie Patillo, aye.
Thank you, council. The budget and CIP, Josh.
All right, so, we went through the budget last week and kind of held over the CIP for this meeting, and of course, we can run back through the budget if someone has interest. But my goal would be after we get done with this discussion today, would be to go ahead and call for the public hearing for the budget, on June 21st is what we've got on here right now. But that being said, I'll kind of jump into this capital improvement plan. So this is a 5-year plan. We've done this for a few years now. And I will say that, I think we've,
Excuse me, Josh, do you
Sure.
want to direct us to a page? Or you
oh,
gonna
no,
use
no, I apologize. Mayor Harris, 118. So looking in, of course, this fiscal year, we're doing quite a bit of what we have planned in this fiscal year. The at least recommended budget, the software upgrade is in there. The IT needs for $41,300 are in the budget. We do have money for the Unified Development Ordinance in the budget as well. Police for vehicle replacement, typically Sean needs 3 cars a year. This year we funded 2 cars. I think we haven't been funding 3 cars in a while. This year I have 2 cars in there and the upgrades the renovations to the basement in the police department. Replacement truck for the chief. This is for the deputy chief. That is in this recommended budget, as well as it's actually $70,000 instead of $80,000 for the capital reserve fund. That brings that fund to an even $600,000. Truck 4, we did not budget money for in this year's budget. And going to streets, the Ram crew cab is in the budget to be funded. Street paving, we are not taking money out of streets to pave this year. We're doing all that from POW bill because we've got an excess of funds. Street striping, $25,000, I believe, is in there. Sidewalk replacement is $20,000, which, of course, that's coming out of POW bill. That is recommended to be funded. The Highway 9 sidewalk the Highway 9 sidewalk installation is in there to be funded. We've been working, let me just give you a little update on that. We've been working with a property owner, actually a couple of property owners on NC9. If you recall, we ended up skipping Cheshire probably a year ago.
Mhm.
And then we moved on up to the property owners above Cheshire. One of the property owners has already said, we're good, I have no issue, y'all can go forward. We've been dealing with another property owner who wants us to, we're gonna probably have to cut some trees down, replace some trees, which I'm fine with. Potentially replace the fence that he has, which I really don't see an issue with. But we're still going back and forth with DOT and how the drainage is designed to dump on his property essentially right now. And that, that's not making him happy, which I understand. So we've got to try to figure out how we're going to get that addressed with DOT and the property owner before we can move forward to get that easement.
Can you give us a kind of where is?
So
that
this would
generally speaking?
be, so just above Jane Jacobs Road,
Mhm.
where you go into the fitness center there at
Mhm.
Cheshire. Just above that, you've got one property owner, and I can't recall his name. The other property owner that we're dealing with the drainage issue is Doug Brock.
But the houses, the property's kind of below
It's
the
below,
road.
that's correct. And then the tough part is you really can't go on the other side of the road because it's just an embankment. So really the only option is on that side. So I did put money in there to continue to work on that this year. It's just been slower than we had hoped it would go.
Yeah.
But just kind of fill you in on that sidewalk.
Let me ask you, seems to me, I don't walk out that way, but it seems to me, are people walking there anyway right now?
On down where Dogwood is, a lot of people walk.
Right,
I don't know how many people walk down NC9 through that curve, to be honest, but
there's not a path there.
There's not a path
There's
there.
usually a couple of guys that walk that. I can't remember their names, but they're pretty consistent.
Well, what I was really curious about was the path, if there was.
I mean, there's not a.
There's not really, is it?
No.
Because there's not that much there. Would it increase put the greenway there, the problem is, once it's in, there's just more water runoff down into their property.
Yeah, the way we've got to design it, I think, if I'm not mistaken, we've got to put in curb there, don't we? DOT's making us put in curb and gutter, so that water's got to shoot somewhere.
So you got much more water that has to go somewhere.
Yeah.
There was a natural drain that was already there and it was originally designed to go in that drain.
Mhm.
The DOT wanted to change it and it sort of drops it right in the middle of his property.
Oh, yeah.
If it was mine, it would be a concern too, so.
Yeah.
It's just working out the logistics of where to put that water.
Yeah. Think it can be fixed somehow or another?
I think so.
Now, the kind of the first phase of NC9, DOT is supposed to do for us, because it's in with that roundabout, that intersection, Ridge Road and 9, which would run up to Dogwood.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, that was kind of the problematic area in there, wasn't it, a little bit?
At least that was the conversation before COVID.
That's good news, Jared. I want to go back and revisit that, maybe get it in writing, huh?
Might not be a bad idea. Bridge replacement, this is something that we have applied for money. Actually, we've already applied and we've gotten funded. Now we're just kind of in the cycle to be funded for, this is the replacement on 9th Street for bridge replacement. And we've got to put some money in that next year. We won't need to put the whole 800,000 in. I think our cost is 20% of that total amount. Street paving, as you can see, we're going to do quite a bit of that this year, although that looks like a large number. That really doesn't get us a lot of pavement, but it's a lot more than we've done in the past, so I think that's a good thing. Of course, we've got Flat Creek sidewalk extension that's been on here for a while.
Can I go back to the bridge a minute, the bridge replacement? Is that on the NPO's book? I think it is. Is it to be funded next year?
Is it next year or the year after?
The year after, and we'll probably be asking DOT to add their, that project, and it will take about 24 months start to finish.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, it is on our books and it has been funded.
Yeah, I've seen it. I just couldn't remember the year. And this coincides with our funding.
Should be pretty good.
Whatever it was, our funding coincides. Yeah.
Let's see. Vehicles for recreation, we actually are funding a van this year, so that should have 30,000 actually in this year's line. Gray Eagle, we did not fund. That is some work on the ceiling and the roof. Is that correct, Josh?
What's that?
For Gray Eagle, that's the funding on ceiling and the roof. Is that correct?
Ceiling, the roof, yeah, I mean,
the 15,000.
Yes. Part F, Veterans Park, you know, we're hoping to get that closed out. I think we may end up getting an extension, but October this year would be the closeout. We are, I don't know if Ron, if you've had any success with that gentleman about the easement, but we've gotten tied, and I think I told the board this last time, we've gotten kind of tied up on the bathrooms at Veterans Park. We had projected that we were gonna build some bathrooms in this Part F grant application, and we were unable to get the site to perk, so we cannot do septic. And the other option would be sewer, and we've had some issues trying to get an easement from a gentleman at the end of the street in order to get to hook on to the line. And the other option would be vaulted or pit toilets, and I just don't think that we'd want that down there, to be honest.
Not exactly sure what one is like, but it doesn't sound like what you'd
If
want,
you-
does it?
Yeah, I can think of a few on the Parkway you can go to. But yes, I don't think it would be, I don't think it looks at it. So, but that $40,000, that really is to make up for some money that we were unable to secure from donation from Kiwanis. And I'll have to flip through here and see what that Veterans Park one is, and I'll do that in a minute. Lake Tomahawk, this is some work at Lake Tomahawk, benches and things. And we do have some of that in the budget this year, my recommended budget for Lake Tomahawk. Paving projects and parks, nothing this year. New parks, nothing this year. And of course, tennis courts, we will finish out, in my recommended budget, there's $60,000 to finish out with $120,000 total for the tennis court renovations at, just there at the pool.
Because we set aside 60 last
We
year.
said the year before.
Oh, yeah, missed a year.
We didn't do anything last year. 59, I'm just gonna get that Veterans Park item I mentioned. Now, it does show some updated fencing around the dugout, an outdoor kitchen actually at the community garden, and some drainage improvements along the ball field. You know, every time we have a decent amount of rain, those ball fields flood, which, you know, I think that's probably typical because they are built in a floodplain, so that's how that works. But I think, you know, in the past, that has cost quite a bit of money on maintenance and redoing those when those do flood, so.
So that's a 205.
What's that?
That's the 200,
Yes.
205,000. So what about the 730,000 for new parks? Of course, those aren't fun, I mean, those are just future
That's just
future
future,
needs, but you got them on the list. I'm sort of curious.
and
what
these
it
have
is.
been in here for a long time. You know, I think, you know, our plan, you know, when we go in, I talked to the council whenever we were talking about our comprehensive plan, about coming back early in the year and talking about that. I
Right.
think this is a good time to talk about some of these
You're right,
projects that are
right.
in here to see if they are still interest
That's right.
for the community and for council. One of the big ones being in this, that 730,000 is a new gymnasium, which is $500,000. And I know that's been in there.
That sort of answers my question. I knew there was something big in there.
Yes,
And if it's $500,000 over when that was put in there, it's not gonna be
it's probably
$500,000
a billion.
now. Oh, yeah.
And
Yeah,
where
more than
was that gonna go?
I don't think.
Oh, we didn't have a
We
location.
didn't have a location.
Okay.
You know, some of the stuff, I think, I mean, it's just, it's very, what's the word I'm looking for? Not really, wish list,
Yeah,
but
wish.
some of the stuff is,
Aspirational.
yeah.
Yeah, there you
know, I
go.
mean, do we want, I mean, would it be nice to have a gymnasium? Probably, but, you know, is that feasible, where we would put it, you know, that sort of thing. All right, back to bring your attention to anything else I think that's real important on this page.
Made it through the list, well, at least the current year list for sure.
So, you know, take a look at this. If there's something that you see that looks out of place, you know, we can address it. You know, I think we talked about this a little bit last week about, you know, the fire department and vehicles and trucks and the cost of those. So that may be something that we talk about in the future, about how to, you know, if you want to finance instead of paying cash. I mean, I think that's a discussion that's probably worth having in the future. But those are your major items for the CIP, and I think we've done pretty good actually this year with funding a lot of the capital items. And there's a few things we didn't get, and I think that's, you know, that's the case kind of every year. We just can't do everything, but I think we've made a really good dent this year It's a much welcome decrease from last year's budget.
Any questions for Josh on these capital improvement projects? And any, we could, did you have something?
Well, I was just remembering the comprehensive plan talked a lot about walkability and so on. So in future budgets, that will inform, the comprehensive plan will inform some of these choices. Is that correct, or?
It very well could.
Mhm.
If that is the direction the council wants to take, it sure can. Yes.
Well, I was under the impression it influenced the list that you have now, the current budget. I mean, this walkability's been on in the comprehensive plan
It's been,
more than 5 years ago.
and, you know, as has been mentioned a bunch, you know, we've done, you know, for years, we've spent the majority of the Powell funds on sidewalk.
Right.
You know, and it took us, you know, a few years to do that on Montreat Road, but we got that finished, and of course, now we've been working on 9, haven't seen a whole lot of action, but we have been working kind of behind the scenes. But as
Well,
far
the
as-
greenways.
And the greenways.
So any comments? Look good to everybody? And we can always reach out to Josh if you have questions. And so we could also have any questions on any other aspects of the budget as well, because the agenda is budget and.
That's correct.
And, I have a question that I just think it might be nice for the public to have a little more perspective on. We're adding 3 new positions in the fire department, and they are lieutenants.
That's correct.
They'll serve on each shift.
Correct.
And so is the plan that there would be firemen who would move up into the lieutenant spot, and then you'd be hiring newer, less firemen to fill in those spots when you're gonna promote, Scotty's gonna promote 3 people.
Good question, Mayor Harris. That is the plan. You know, we always like to promote from within if we can do that. And I think in this case, we should be able to do that with probably all 3 of those.
Right.
And then the positions that would be vacated by them, of course, would be more likely the entry level firefighters.
And you may not be able to answer this, and maybe Chief Freeman may be able to, because it's, you just may have insight into it. I mean, I wish I'd thought about it and asking Chief Harris about it last week when he was here. But we had the discussion about 3 or 4 months ago when we had, about the grant that you can get, and, it funds it for 2 or 3 years, and then you're on your own, so to speak. And council didn't think that was maybe the best idea because it kind of hems you in a little bit. And that request was for 3, really for 9 positions, I believe, to fund, because it was 3 a shift, wasn't
The
it?
grant,
Yeah, the discussion we had 3 or 4 months ago.
I think it was 6.
6,
I do think it was 6.
2 a shift.
It was 2 a shift.
2 a shift, not 3 a shift, but two new plate positions on a shift. So this gives us 1 per shift. And I'm just sort of curious how that plays into the mix of what a shift looks like, adding a lieutenant to it. That may not be a fair question for you since you're not fire chief.
I could probably butcher that pretty good right now.
Yeah.
But I will hold that one for Chief Harris.
Yeah, and it may be on our budget hearing. It might be good.
We can do that.
Or it might be good if you could do this, maybe, because it's probably not a complicated answer.
It's not.
Maybe just communicate to council in writing, in writing, and you can release the email to Fred and make sure the public, if they're interested, can access it. We'll get it in the minutes of the next meeting, perhaps. How about that? Monday's meeting, we'll get it in the minutes of Monday's meeting.
We can do that.
Just an FYI. That'd be great. Anybody else have any other questions, budget questions in general about anything? If not, then I would entertain a motion, item C, a motion to call for a public hearing for fiscal year 21-22 budget to be held on Monday, June the 21st, 8:30 a.m. or as soon thereafter as possible in the boardroom of Town Hall at 160 Midland Avenue.
So moved.
Thank you, Ryan. Councilmember King, please.
We've just thrown you all out.
I'm gonna make it, it's challenging.
Get this.
I don't remember what I'm supposed to say now. Pam King, aye.
Ryan Stone, aye.
Tim Raines, aye.
Archie Patillo, aye.
Thank you, council. That's great. Josh, any communication?
We can just notice it. No, I think that's all I've got, Mayor Harris.
All
Council.
right. Anybody from council have anything else to say about our items on the agenda today? If not, then I'll meeting adjourned, and everybody have a great day.
You
See
too?
you, we'll see you this afternoon.
See you.
Yes.